Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into, well, maybe the biggest question of all. What is love? We're going to explore this through the lens of some classic theological texts to get a handle on how they define this massive, fundamental human experience. All right, so let's just jump right in. Love. We all know it, we all feel it, but what is it really? I mean, how can one little word cover everything from your love for your parents, to your friends, to your spouse, to pizza? It's a lot.
That's the exact same problem that St. Augustine was wrestling with centuries ago in his book Confessions. He looked inside his own soul and just saw this tangled mess of loves. Love for people, for worldly things, for God. And he was just trying to figure out, how does all of this fit together inside one person?
So, Augustine's question, that's our starting point. We're going to begin right there in the messy, complicated, and wonderful reality of human love and all its different flavors. So, here's what Augustine noticed. Our hearts are kind of restless, you know? We go around trying to find ultimate happiness and love in things that can't really deliver it: possession, success, even other people. And his argument wasn't that these things are bad, not at all. But he said they're only truly good when we love them in the right order, when they ultimately point us back to the source of all goodness. Okay, so if our loves can get all out of whack, how do we get them back in order? Well, from this theological perspective, the answer is you have to start with the foundation. You have to start with the love of God. This is the central pillar that everything else is built on. And to really get a handle on this, we have to talk about a super important word you see right here: charity. Now, we're not just talking about donating to a good cause. In theology, charity, or caritas, is way bigger. It's the highest form of love, a kind of divine love that completely reorients your soul. It's what allows you to love God for who God is, and then, because of that, love everyone else the right way. To make it crystal clear what he means by this divine love, St. Augustine does something really interesting. He makes a list of all these incredible, beautiful things we experience with our senses: gorgeous sights, amazing music, delicious food. And he says, look, when I talk about loving my God, I'm not talking about any of this stuff. But then, and this is the brilliant part, he turns it all around. He says, and yet I do love a kind of light, a kind of melody. He's saying the love for God is experienced by the inner person, by the soul. All that beauty out there in the world, it's just a faint echo of a much deeper spiritual reality that our souls are actually looking for. And this next part is a total game changer. Think about it. Our love is a response, right? We love things because we see that they're good. But in this framework, God's love is different. It's creative. It doesn't just find goodness and respond to it. It's the very thing that pours goodness into everything in the first place. Okay, so once you get that idea of God's creative love, it naturally leads to the next big piece of the puzzle: how we're supposed to love our neighbor. This is probably one of the most famous commandments, right? But what's key here is that it's not a separate random rule. It actually flows right out of loving God first. Loving God is the why, and loving your neighbor is the how you put it into practice in the real world. So, who exactly is our neighbor? Well, according to these texts, it's pretty much everybody, all mankind. And there are some really specific theological reasons for that, as you can see. The idea is that every single human being is made in the image of God and is included in Christ's act of redemption. So while there might be a special connection with fellow believers, the call to love is universal. And this is so important. This kind of love isn't just a feeling, you know? It's not about having warm, fuzzy thoughts. It has to be real. It has to be something you do. It's about taking concrete actions that are for the actual good of the other person. It's love in action. All right, now let's zoom in on a really specific, really powerful example of this love in action: the unique bond between a husband and wife, which these texts see as something much, much more than just a human agreement. This passage from Ephesians is just huge. It sets up the model for Christian marriage, and it's pretty radical. It says a husband's love for his wife should look like Christ's love for the church, a love that is totally self-giving, a love that's willing to sacrifice absolutely everything for the good of the other. So what this does is completely transform the idea of marriage. It stops being just a social or legal contract, and it becomes a sacrament, a visible, physical sign of an invisible spiritual grace. The thinking is that God actually gives the couple the grace they need to live up to this incredibly high calling of sacrificial love. So the Catechism breaks this down into three main goals, or ends, of marriage. First is having children and raising them in the faith, which is seen as partnering with God's own creative work. Second is mutual support, helping each other through life and on the path to holiness. And third is a remedy against concupiscence, which is a fancy way of saying it channels our powerful human passions toward a good and holy purpose within the marriage. And that brings us to this famous line from the Gospel of Matthew. It really hammers home the idea of permanence, because marriage is seen as a sacrament, reflecting that unbreakable bond between Christ and the Church. The union itself is considered indissoluble, meant to last until death. Okay, we've talked about loving God, loving our neighbor, and the special love in marriage. Let's pull all these threads together now and see the big picture that these texts are trained to paint for us. And really, this is the answer to Augustine's original question. All those different kinds of love, they aren't supposed to be at war with each other. When they're in the right order, they're all like rivers flowing from one single source, and they're all heading back to the same place, God. And this incredible line from Augustine, it just perfectly captures that aha moment at the end of the journey. It's the soul finally realizing that all the beauty, all the love it was chasing, and all these scattered things was really just a deep longing for the one infinite source of all love and beauty. So that leaves us with something to think about. In a world that feels so fractured and divided, if this theological vision is right, if the whole point of love in its truest form is to unite, what could that mean for how we live and how we love right here, right now?